who do you think I should ask next? Do you have one or a few names in mind?
And if I can recommend another person, it's one very, very nice Swedish girl who was also involved in agile software development for a long time. Her name is Mia Kolmodin. So I recommend those two women.
Hi, today's interview is with Mia Kolmodin. We talked about hobbies that turn into companies, the challenges to relax, and system thinking as a tool for designers.
I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello everyone, and hello Mia. Actually, I didn't ask how to pronounce your name. I think it's Mia Kolmodin. Is that how to pronounce your full name?
Yeah, it's right. It's Mia Kolmodin. I didn't ask you either. Is it Eve?
Eve, yeah, like Adam and Eve. Very strange. It's a French name, and the easiest way to say is Adam and Eve, even if that's a different kind of gender. And we immediately jumped a little bit into it. I actually decided earlier on to no longer ask people the names offline, to do it online, because exactly for the same reason, sometimes it's a little bit like, how do we pronounce names and stuff like that? That is also part of it. And part of reality, what I wanted to show also is where we are. And I'm in Belgium, and normally we should go. Seems to be very strange today. So I show where I am in Belgium. So this is Ghent, where I am, and let's move, or let's ask Google to move us to Stockholm, where you are, and this is showing us more or less. And you can see that I have already talked to a few people in Stockholm, Mina and Gustav. I talked to Gitte Klitgaard, I talked to Jimmy, and I talked to Marcin, who's there somewhere else, somewhere as well. So there's a few people that I've talked already, and let's bring you back on screen. Here you are. And on my side in Belgium, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. And what's the time on your side?
It's the same here, yeah.
Because Europe, a lot of us are, even if it's not that close, we're still in the same time zone. So that feels a lot more natural. And I jumped right into that. But Mia, for the few people that don't know you, could you tell us a little more? Who is Mia?
Oh, who am I?
Or what you want people to know, of course.
Yes. I'm right now I'm running Dandy People and an agile coaching agency that I started 7 years ago. And I run it together, or I started it together with my husband, but I run it together with everyone in the organization, I would say, more or less.
Wow. And everyone, that means how many people?
I think we're 23 now.
Wow, okay.
And And well, I live outside of Stockholm together with my husband, Matthias, and our dog, Musse, who's also part of the company, I would say. he's always in there. And I have a background as a designer, and I'm a mother of 3, but I gave birth to 1, so I have 2 bonus kids. They're all moved out, grown up. So my youngest now, she's 20. She's in the army.
Wow, in the army. That's,
in the Navy.
Oh, okay. So that's a completely different kind of life.
Yes, it is.
If we're talking about teams and everything in the army, that's a kind of teamwork.
They're really good at that, I would say, and Agile have, of course, been inspired a lot by how they do things. So it's really interesting. And she's interested in leadership, also in design, which I'm also interested in. So we have common interests. So that's kind of fun to have grown-up kids.
My oldest is 20, so my children are a little bit younger, also 3. But yeah, it's a completely different world once they're 20 than if they're a lot younger.
It is, but all ages have their beauty. I would say it's magical to have a 4-year-old or newborn or whatever. So it's always really nice.
It's nice, and at the same time, yeah, like you say, there's every new age you discover something both in themselves and in yourself or in myself as a parent. Just like, okay, this is the next challenge, and whatever we do, we're never prepared for the next phase, whatever we think we are.
No, exactly. How do you take this one on?
Yeah, that manual, I never was able to find it.
No, I never read any manuals, so that's how I do it.
Okay, in that sense, you're prepared or not prepared. Okay, we jumped right into that. But let's talk about that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
I think that this was one of the questions that I really struggled with when I read through. I have no idea what to say. But I think there's so many things that influences me, at least, to who I am. And I'm not sure what people do know or not know. But that I have a background as a designer. I know that people maybe don't know that. And it has influenced me in everything I do. And one of the things with Dandy that, trying to visualize things to make it simple to understand complex topics, of course. And I have a father who's he's been an inspirational figure to me when it comes to that. So he has been an illustrator, or what do you call it? Yeah, illustrator, news illustrator, maybe you call it. So making infographics and like super complex stuff in the papers. And doing that for all my life until he was a pensioner now, maybe 7 years ago.
That sounds like so because you said something interesting. You said like, okay, showing very complex stuff for the newspaper, but when I look at infographics, it's also like complex stuff that is made much more simpler to make it, to visualize it. And what I'm hearing is that that's a lot what you try to do with Andy as well. Like, okay, how could we look at some visualization and make it easier? Is it a correct understanding?
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't maybe think about it that much when I was a kid, but he was doing that work at home as well. He had his office at home and also at the newspaper, but he was doing a lot of work at home. And, I was helping him. I was modeling for things, or, he was airbrushing for real, not on the computer.
Oh, yeah, because of course this is pre-computers probably.
Yeah.
So that's,
so I had this lights table. He had this, where you do airbrushing. You have this kind of fan thing that, brings out everything, all the bad stuff in the air. And, so he was kind of teaching me how to do this kind of stuff, even though, I was just a kid. But it's always been
and when you
really
say kids, what age were you when you first remember doing this, something with your dad?
I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 or something like that. I was using his Apple computer that had the screen standing up, doing illustrations in Illustrator. And today I was doing illustrations with my colleagues for the game that we have. I do a working game, like showing him how I do stuff. And it's like, oh, all these shortcuts, everything you do. For me, it's been trained from childhood. So it has influenced me a lot. And of course, also choosing to become a designer. And I was trained as an illustrator and designer as well in school.
Wow. And did you discuss a lot of your first illustrations or designs with your father then later on when you started doing that kind of work? Or
I'm not sure. He's in some way, he's not so supportive. He still isn't. He's like, do you know that you can do like this instead? Normally you don't do like that. You do like this. I'm like, okay. That's kind of funny. But he's always been,
it's a different kind of support, I would say.
A different kind of support, exactly. And now I try to bring him on, having like weekends when we do paintings in the office. We meet everyone who wants to do art, and then I try to bring my dad because I want him to start to do this because it's fun, not because it's a job. But still, then he's also like, oh, doing trees, that's really difficult. Maybe you shouldn't try it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try it. That's kind of funny. Yeah, but I think it has shaped who I am. And he has in particular always been very thorough with make it easy to understand. No misunderstandings. All of that should be gone.
Especially in newspapers, you don't get much of a chance in the sense that people look
in
like
print.
What a few seconds exactly, and
in print as well. You can't update like it is now.
Yeah, even worse. So now we could try out a little bit on the web. If people don't understand it, we just update it and add a new infographic.
I'm like that all the time. Oh yeah, I had misspells, so whatever. Oh, I can fix that. That's fine.
But back in this time, that was not possible. But yeah, it sounds. I don't know how many people know that, but it sounds really like a big influence. So that's a very nice story to share. I want to move to that next question, that if you had not been doing what you've been doing now, what could have become of you? You already, in a sense, said, okay, I was a kind of designer, but when you were young, was there something else you were destined to become, or was there something else along your path?
Well, my plan was to become a photographer. So I studied photography. I studied design, illustration, and photography, basically, and then a lot of other media stuff. But then I also I studied in Boston, New England School of Photography, to be trained as a photographer. But I only, after a year, I went back. It was so slow. It felt like this is a job for old people, And
you were what age at that time?
I was 19.
19.
And it was I just wanted to do too many things, and it was like, take it slow. You have to do everything, which I felt I already knew because I already studied it for 3 years. So I got so bored. So I don't have that patience to, and then when you go out and start to work, you also have to be the assistant to make coffee. You don't become the photographer just because you're trained as photographer. And I had already done that to a couple of photographers here before I went to Boston. So I was doing like simultaneously everything. And I am a little bit like that. But I never became a photographer.
And at age of 19, I can imagine that many people don't have a lot of patience. We really want to go out in the world, change the world.
Exactly.
And if you have been doing already things with your dad from age 7, it feels already like 12 years of working. And of course, it's different, but still, I can imagine that for you, it feels like, I've been doing that for ages. I gradually learn a little bit new tricks, and then all of a sudden, for the people where you started to work with, it looks like, okay, there's again someone fresh from school who has lots of ideas. But first bring us some coffee. Let's see the real world, and then you can,
And I just, I'm not up for this. And also very male dominated. I wanted to become a news photographer, of course, kind of growing up at the newspaper. And that's just, they had very few female photographers. And
do you have any idea how that is today? Has that world changed, or is that still male dominated?
I really don't know. I can't say. But it happened also when I was, around that age, that also they fired most photographers, and they were just buying photography from
freelance kind of thing.
And also the agencies. So they have agencies that they buy photographs from. So they also didn't hire that many photographers.
So in that sense, it was the wrong moment for you to start.
It felt like this is, not a job that's gonna be here in the future. I should probably focus on doing something else.
And then move to another industry which is less male dominated. Let's go to IT, which is kind of.
I've never really seen myself as working in IT, but more I was working in web development, like a web designer when I started to work as a designer. So maybe not so much talk about IT then.
And if I don't know how it is in your country, but I think indeed, if you look at the IT part in design, there probably are more women than in the general IT world. In a sense. Is that true?
Exactly, especially as designers. When I started to work, it was in the end of the 90s, like 99, I think. We were I started to work at Framfab, it was called, which grew from like, we were 60 when I joined, and then 2000 in 2 years. So it was like one of
Wow.
the grew like outrageously. And in the design department that we had then, we were a lot of female. So maybe 50-50 or something like that.
Okay, which is pretty nice. I don't know at that time, but even today, I think many IT companies are not at that level, unfortunately.
No.
So that's so I can imagine that it felt much better for you than compared to that photography world.
Yeah, exactly, and not so like, because as the photographers, they were also old. I felt we're all young people.
Well, they were all in web design, and
Yeah,
this
maybe.
is where you joined.
Probably.
Well, I can imagine that when you grow a company from just dozens of people to a few thousand people, that there's a lot more young people at that moment, especially in industry that is that young. So
I'm not sure if we had anyone above 30. It's like it was the opposite. Where are they? They don't know what we're doing. So maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's really interesting stories. Really interesting stories. Thanks for sharing. I want to move to that next question. That what do you consider your biggest challenge? And then the question next to that: why is that a good thing for you? And of course, the challenge that you want to share open on the internet.
Yeah. Of course. I don't know. It could maybe be the challenge to relax, not do anything, not be the good girl, not be productive. That has always been a challenge. And now it's vacation time. And before we started this, I told you that I am kind of tired. It's time for vacation. I will go on vacation on Wednesday next week. But also vacation that's a struggle. After like 2 weeks, I don't know what to do with myself.
So you're the way I interpret this is that for you, vacation, just lying on a beach there, drinking, I don't know, anything, just relaxing, doing nothing is hard for you? Is that the kind of thing that is hard?
It is. I'm thinking about all the things I could do and what should I choose.
And then you feel bad because not doing.
I get stressed. I don't know what to do. There's so many options. Should I do that? Should I read that book now or later? Should I just, lay down in the hammock, or should I fix the flowers? Should I go and buy that? Should I repaint the house? I'm like, should I do the paintings that I've been wanting to do and haven't really been, finishing? Or there's so many things you can do with the time, and that's a struggle.
And I can imagine that once your children have left the house, that it's even more, because in holidays with children, there still is lots to do to take care of them one way or another.
Exactly.
Once they're gone, we're kind of at the moment that they're probably not going anymore with us, so we didn't have that
you're
experience,
super happy if they join.
Yeah, so but we're still there. But I can imagine that once you're out of that phase, that's like, okay, what does that mean? What do I have to do with my time?
What do I do with my time? Exactly. And I do a lot of things, and I do, I paint, I do pottery, I read a lot, but there's still like, I want to do so many more things. So
and when you do these kind of things, is that then also kind of productive thing? I have to finish this, or is this? Because I don't know. For some people, I have some friends where hobbies turn out into must do's, and then all of a sudden it doesn't feel a hobby anymore. It doesn't.
exactly.
It feels more stress.
I've had hobbies that turned into companies, which is, I was making clothes, and then I have to produce clothes and sell in a store as a clothes designer. So I have a clothes designer brand. I was like, is this really what I should be doing?
It was a hobby, and
all night, so just making new sweaters for the store. It's like, so yeah.
It's interesting because we live in a world where indeed there's a lot of talk. Yeah, you should, as an independent, or if you have your own company, you should have side jobs, and there should be extra money there and extra money there. And one way or another, it's like, yeah, you're less dependent on other people, but at the same time, they become all these kind of have to do's, and where does it stop? And yeah, okay, I can imagine that.
For me, it hasn't been about the money, or it's just I'm so interested in the things, and I just see so much potential. This could become this. I started to with my daughter one Christmas, maybe I don't know 8-9 years ago. We started like one morning. It's like, oh, what should we do today? Maybe we can make a board game. How hard can it be? And we started to sketch things and make things, and my board game became a board game about politics, because when you go to your family over Christmas, there's lots of arguments if you talk about politics. So I thought maybe we can make a board game about politics that doesn't bring up the worst from people, that maybe we learn about each other, and and then I couldn't stop. I created that board game. I printed, I don't know how many. I have a website about it. It was on Kickstarter.
So it's like what I hear you say. It's not really about the money, but it's more about changing the world in a way, and making family parties nicer, or whatever. Making politics.
A lot of times it's about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And the sweaters I was making, that was for women breastfeeding, because you can open it up like this, and you couldn't buy them at that time, so I was making them for myself, and I was like, oh, that's super smart. Like, okay, yeah, I can make more. And make these bags that you open up, and you had the diapers and everything in it, so you could change diapers anywhere, and then just throw it under the what do you call it, the baby carrier. So practical stuff that useful, and like, oh, people want this. Oh, maybe I should make more.
Talking about changing the world, exactly. That's really interesting kind of things. And so that question had two parts of it. So the hard part, we talked already about the hard part of the relaxing part. What about that is good for you about having a hard time relaxing? What is there a good part for you?
Well, the good part is that I do plan to get time to be relaxed. So I like to have routines for myself that are good, and I look forward to them. In the mornings I go up and run. I put out my my training clothes in the evening. I put my the coffee ready for the morning that I drink before. So I have to plan to be able to get to be relaxed and to feel good. And that part, I know I have to do that. I got burnt out when I was 22 or something from not knowing this, giving myself time to relax, of course, and be out in the nature. So now I plan those things. I've learned that, and that feels really nice.
So that's good. So you learned that, and apparently already at a pretty young age, that you needed to do this. To have that. Well, I can imagine you said earlier on at 19, you were about, okay, I want to leave that photography world. You come into the design world, but it's exploding. So I can imagine that it's very easy to burn out in that kind of world, because in the early 2000s, the whole world was exploding web design, and there was a lot of things were needed.
Yeah.
So it's very
unclear. How do you do things, and who's doing things, and how many things can you do, and whatever.
Yeah, but everything was possible at that time. The only problem was everything was possible if you knew how, but nobody knew how, and we all had to figure it out together.
Yeah.
And of course, clients had no idea what they want. They never know, but we didn't know yet how to ask them in many cases. So,
yeah, exactly.
So
and how to build things. Yeah.
But you learn from that okay, I need to build in some routines for relaxing and thinking about that and learning. So that's
working out, being out in the nature, not doing anything, read, relax, and take the courses that I do in pottery, and the paint. Take a weekend to do that. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
That's nice to hear. It's nice to hear, especially that you could learn it at that age. And Well, a lot of the stories that you share already, I hear a lot of passion. I hear a lot of drive. Do you know what drives you, where that drive is coming from? Is that also, I don't know, if I hear that you saw your father busy at home, is there a link there or somewhere else?
No, I think just that gave me some tools on how to maybe like change the world, like you're saying, because making things better and both for anyone, it doesn't matter if I know them or if I don't need to have a connection. I just want to make things better. And if I see things, or if I see, like we work now in organizations with change, I see the system is hurting people, that makes me angry. Then I want to change the system. And I've worked with
because you want to help these people that are hurt by the system. That's what I'm hearing.
It can really be fixed. Why is no one doing this? And then I have to go and help them fix it, because I just know it can be done, and people would feel so much better, and they would create so much, better products and services for their customers. And then, so it's that drive to make things better, for people and for animals or whatever, the world.
And what I'm hearing also is that maybe it's your design background or anything else, but what I hear is that you're also good at seeing, for example, the example of the sweaters, like, okay, you see immediately how you can solve it to make it better for women that are breastfeeding. So like you see part of the solution. And for me, well, when we work in organization, there is some kind of designing of an organization, I would say.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of but I see similarities, but I'm not sure, is that true? Do you use your design tools, skills?
Yeah, I do. And system thinking, if you don't have that when you do design, you can't really design complex things. It has to connect. It has to be an ecosystem. It has to go together, and it has to bring out the right feelings at the right time and give the right services. So it's I think system thinking for most designers must be quite easy. That's my guess.
And did you learn anything about system thinking when you're back in school learning about design, or is that something you picked up along the way? Or
I don't think so. It wasn't really on the map at all. It was more that, how do you... I was taught how to draw, different typefaces by hand. And, how to do photography and everything by hand. So more of communication and, how to make something work so that people actually understand and get the experience, and bring something out, tell a story. Storytelling was a lot of storytelling, studying journalism and film, history and anything like that. So a lot of storytelling.
But tools like design thinking, then you learn more when you moved into the agile space. Is that how?
Yes, definitely. I'm so old, so design thinking didn't exist then. No, it was later. Yeah, working as a designer, starting to do that kind of work, and yeah. And it became a much broader space, from UX and strategy and, graphic design, art direction, there's so many pieces of the design work now.
Yeah, but you keep connecting, because what I'm seeing is that it's, again, we're now talking about changing the world, changing organizations, and you basically, what I'm hearing, you see some kind of people who are hurt, or animals, like you said earlier on, who are hurt by a system, and that brain kind of kicks in, like, okay, what part of the system should I change, and what can I pull or push so that the system moves a little bit in a better...
Exactly. And it could be super boring thing like agile contracting, which I've been engaged in here in Sweden, starting up, kind of trying to start up a movement, getting people together and sharing examples, running conferences and a website, and together with Matthias Garin, my former colleague, and, creating trainings for certified agile contracting, not at all because I'm into contracting. I've never worked with that. My husband do all of that. But how do you enable people to deliver value together and build relationship and focus on actually understanding the customer instead? So yeah, it all connects, and it could be simple things that really, really helps.
Yeah, but especially if you talk about contracting, contracts themselves, that's one of the things that we have for decades, not to say centuries, and a lot of people still think in the old ways. And it's like, yeah, but you have to have, and this is fixed. And one of the tricks, or one of the things I once heard that clicked in my mind a lot, and that's just like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, and advocate friend of mine, so she's a lawyer, she told me, like, yeah, you create a marital contract at the moment that you both agree as partners, and basically what you put in the contract is, how will we split apart when we don't no longer agree? And she's like, but if you, at the moment that you're breaking up and you still agree, and you don't want to use the contract, you want to do something else that in the contract you both agree, that's fine. You don't have to follow that contract. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, but what if I change my mind? Well, if both of you change your mind during the course, it's fine. You can even adapt your contract along the way. You can, and if you still agree on how you will separate, and it's not in the contract, but you agree, it doesn't matter. That contract is not forcing you to do it one way or another. And that was for me like, yeah, of course. And the more I went into Agile, the more I saw, like, okay, a lot of these contracts, it's really about what do we do when we disagree on something, and you create that at the moment that you agree. But as long as you keep agreeing, you can update that contract in any kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thinking that helps us to collaborate in good ways, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes the contracting, the way it's set up at companies, it's kind of making it impossible to work together. It's like, yes, we need this and we need that. It's like,
definitely, and impossible to actually do what they need, which is not what they thought in the beginning, and we know that. But we can't argue in the beginning because then they don't hire us. So.
And they don't know that they don't know, and we might have known, but it's kind of hard to have that discussion and everything. That's interesting.
But I've said many times that I still do design. I design organizations instead, together with people, and help them see what it could be like, and what's actually hurting them or holding them back from doing what they want to do and need to do.
And how easy is that for people to hear that, especially in the beginning? If you haven't worked with an organization, how do you roll into that kind of relationship with a new client? Let's put it like that.
If I tell them that I'm a designer, is that what you mean? I don't.
Well, I mean, you say, yeah, you don't tell them. You just you work that kind of way, and later on, when there is some kind of relationship, then you might explain a little more. That's a little bit what I'm hearing. Or
what we do a lot, we do a lot of experience-based trainings, to help them understand the principles and how things, will work out, or is working or not working, and that's, I think, the only way to help them understand why it is as it is. If I try to tell them why it is as it is, it's not going to work.
It's interesting, because usually when they hire us in the beginning, they're asking us for our expertise and to hear it. But we know that if we do tell them, they're not going to listen, because they have all kind of reasons why they are different, and why their world is different, and why we don't understand the world. And that's true. We don't understand the world by design, because we're not there yet.
And we know we don't.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, they're like, yeah, but tell us. So yeah, it's that game that we need to play to understand each other's world, I think. That's
I've focused on trying to do as good training sessions as possible, to help as many as possible, I guess, to understand the basics. And I told you about the game, the Way of Working, Agile Way of Working game, which is just super simple, helping teams understand how they collaborate and work in, basic Scrumish. But we started the first time we did it for nurses in elderly homes to help them to collaborate as a team instead of having a manager telling them what to do and thinking people are not interested, they're stupid, they don't really understand what we say, they're not Swedish. There were so many excuses why these people didn't want to take any responsibility. And it's like, we don't really believe that's true. And then we helped them over 3 months or so and created teams instead, taking responsibility together. And the game helped them to understand how to actually collaborate with a board, having stand-ups and, visualizing work going on. And, the quiet people, the people that never said anything, that they thought didn't really understand what they were saying, they were taking responsibility. They were running it. They were like, and it's just those kind of things just give me the goosebumps. Actually, it's just
I have the goosebumps just listening in it, because it's especially what you say about these introverts and the quiet people. You give them the tools so that they can, because introverts doesn't mean that they don't have opinions. They usually think a lot more about it and they have lots of ideas, but not many times do they have the tools to express them. And if we find ways that we can give them a way to express what their thing, then they're actually much better at some of it. And at the same time, I assume that some of your tools also help the more extrovert people to keep quiet and to listen, because in the rules of the game, now it's the more introvert people that need to talk, and they're like, what? They
Yeah, and I think that's just amazing to see those things happen to people and to groups, to teams, to organizations, and I think it's beautiful.
It sounds indeed very, very, very beautiful. Okay, I want to move to that next question, because you talked already about some achievements. What do you consider your biggest achievement so far? And maybe let's go for the question before the question. How easy, because basically this is your opportunity to brag. How easy is it for Mia to brag? How proud can you be about what you achieved in your life?
Oh, it's just, I think what I'm most proud of is my daughter. So, how can she be so, I don't know, she's just an amazing person. Who's really smart, really caring about people, really want to do good, and brave. I mean, working in the Navy now as she is, she just took the job after doing the service in the military. So, and that makes me just, it blows my mind. How did I manage to do that? I wasn't really a good mother, I think. So,
but wait, because there's two parts of it. There's the part of the motherhood, and there is the part of the daughter. It sounds like it's very easy for you, for example, to be very proud of what your daughter is achieving and how she's in the world. And at the same time, I'm here a little bit, I don't know. Wouldn't say you're not proud of the way you achieved it, but it's like, it's not much my part. It's more her part. Is that a kind of good interpretation of what you just said, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, of course, I was a single mother from 3 months until she was 4, I think, and that's a struggle, of course. But I've never felt that I want to be the perfect mother. That's never been any of my dreams.
If you're a standalone single mother for 3-4 years, it's almost impossible to be the perfect mother. I mean, there's so much that you have to do on your own.
And that's more
and
like
at the same time,
put the oxygen mask on yourself first, otherwise you can't care for your children. That's how I always felt. I have to be standing up, otherwise she will be falling down. More like that.
It's my favorite way of telling people, like, look, you first need to take care of yourself, and even how hard it is. And well, it's hard to be a perfect mother, but at the same time, if you can do that for 4 years just on your own, it is already a very big achievement, because it's really hard. And I think part of it is that you achieved it because you were looking after for yourself, because otherwise I see so many single parents struggling because you basically have to play both roles, and it's not that they're bad mothers or fathers. It's just it is hard to do it on your own.
It is hard. So I am proud of that. Just making it so far, which feels amazing.
But it's not, what do I say? Your goal was never to be the perfect, what I have now call Instagram model or whatever, having perfect pictures or anything.
Nothing.
It's more like making sure that, and what I'm hearing is that the fact that you have a daughter that is, brave as going to the Navy, it's also, it is teamwork, but at the same time, it's dangerous work sometimes. It's hard work. I can imagine that at sea and everything, what's happening. It is hard life as well. So it's a very brave person to hear.
And that I'm really proud of her being brave.
And when you compare
always
that,
challenging me, and that's that's a tough one. But I'm kind of brave or proud of that too. That she's she's like no. What are you saying? No. It's like fuck it.
As a parent, especially if a parent has more or less similar age kids, and the years before, it's like we're at the same time proud and at the same time like, come on, not today, not now. Like,
why is she like me?
It's like we always want, or at least one of the things I like to say is that I like my children to behave and to think on their own, to not feel group pressure whenever. But when they're pressuring me at the moment that we need to go to school, it's like, not now, let's just follow the plan, whatever. It's like, no. And at the same time, you're proud that they're on their own and not doing it. But it's hard sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
And that's especially if we're talking older, once they start to know about the world. We just talked about politics, and if you're in the Navy, you kind of also very hard about some of the things that are happening in the world right now. Everything I don't know. In Sweden, is there an active duty now because of the war that's going on in Ukraine? Because it's not that far. I don't know how.
Yeah, they have stepped up a lot in the army, in the Navy. So, of course, the NATO is here and the Americans are here. So, doing, these exercises together. And now over midsummer, we had 4, I think, was it American ships, I think, just outside of Stockholm here.
So I can imagine that also
us, I think, on midsummer, because then of course everything's down.
Yeah, but I'm like, there's a lot going on also for her. That life is not just go to the army and play a little bit with toys. No, this is becoming much more real in a way. And she kind of, what I'm hearing, she kind of decided almost in the midst of this, like, this is what I'm going to do. So that's very brave.
I was like, you really want to do that? Do you know what's going on now? So, I do.
Wow, that's really something to be proud of, it and scared at the same time, but proud as a parent. Like, it's a little bit like what you say. You for yourself, you want to change the world and help them in the right way. And she's like, this is something where there is some kind of problem, and I want to help out. So that's and has the tools because she's been trained for that. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. And sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say something before.
No, that was the kind of thing I wanted to look for. It's really interesting there. I want to move to that next question about personal agility. So do you have a tip that you want to share with people? Like, oops.
Yeah, on personal agility. Well, I'm a big fan of finishing stuff. So stop starting, start finishing is a mantra for myself, especially now moving into vacation. My table was full with sticky notes today on stuff that I have to do. It was like, I can't stand it anymore. I have to finish, get it off. Otherwise, I can't never relax if I know that there's things that have been started, not really finished. That's I can't stand that.
And usually, yeah, so it's really also about not starting new things until things are finished. Is that definitely
exactly.
part of it? Yeah.
Yeah, but in my role, I have to maybe start a lot of things, and I get questions from customers. I have to do, business offers, send them off. Some things are have deadlines, but some things are just stuff that I want to do because I enjoy it, or we have things that we do together, and then maybe you don't really finish it because other things are more important right now. But it's really, really nice to just finish things that I care about and others care about, that they have been waiting for. So
I also hear for example, like the offers, replying to offers for customers and giving offers. It's like, it feels like, okay, it's finished, and at the same time it's not finished, because of course it's only finished at the moment that they have their signature, or maybe that's even only started, but because then the real work is really starting. So,
there are different parts of it, but just having those whatever tasks you have there, have them done, or actually get a result from something.
And is there things like, for example, contracts or anything that you push out and then, okay, that you could finish that before Wednesday, you go on holiday, and then, because we talked earlier about relaxing, is that then possible for you to ignore that client during the next 2 weeks? So
Much better.
Because it's out, because it's delivered to the customer, it's out for you, or
I'm actually quite good at just pausing everything, but then I'm more like, what should I do now when I paused everything? That's for me.
Because indeed the other part is then kind of finished, and it's like, okay, this is the holiday, and so there is
I'm kind of good at that, actually.
And when you talk about the finishing part, is there anything, if people want to do this more, because that's just a lot of us, we talk about that, but it's sometimes hard. Do you have any tip for people that you can say, okay, this could help you to finish something?
I'm also a big fan of monotasking, which a method that a friend of mine has created, Staffan Nöteberg, which is just you create a list of top maybe 5 things that I think I should do today, and then I try to finish them. And then every 20 minutes you have this, tomato watch or whatever. And then
the Pomodoro technique.
Pomodoro technique, exactly.
Stefan moved it, I think, even further.
Exactly. Then focus on that and just, get really into it. And then 20 minutes later, okay, what's the best, use of my time right now? Should I start something else? Or should I just continue to finish this? I think that really, really helps. It's a good technique.
I agree. It helped me a lot years and years ago to finish, also to focus, because it's very tempting, especially with some of the creative work. We can think about other things like, no, okay, focus 20 minutes, ignore everything else. Yeah, of course, if there's, as long as nothing is on fire, the fire kind of stuff is more important. But anything than that, focus. Let's not do whatever and get it done. That's
one of the tips that he has as well. I did that today because I've been pushing, one of these business offers a little bit too far. So it's like, I have to get it done today, but I don't have the time. It's like, okay, I have 5 minutes now before the next meeting. Just open the offer template thing, get started. If I know that I'm started, I'm going to be able to finish it after the meeting, even though maybe I have 10 minutes. I know what to put in there. There's no mystery. It's just get it done. And that's one of his tips as well. When you leave in the evening and go home from the office, or start whatever you have to do tomorrow, then it'd be much easier tomorrow to finish it instead of just leaving it. So, which is it feels like a weird thing to do. Just start a little bit.
It's a technique I've learned from Ken Beck as a developer. He's like, as developers, sometimes when we try to do something and when we're stuck, the code is broken, the test doesn't work, whatever, what I used to do years ago is like, okay, I want to finish, and then you try and it doesn't work, and then you try another hour, and whatever, you take way too long to try to find the problem, which you don't.
Yeah.
In the end, you give up, and then you sleep on it, and the next morning in 5 minutes it's gone. It's you find it because that other part
The
of the
brain has fixed it.
the brain has fixed it. And what I've learned from Ken Beck is that he said you can actually use it to your advantage. You can just say, okay, I make failing tests. So when I do unit tests, I create a failing test, so TDD, test-driven development. I create a failing test, and I don't try to solve it. I just leave it there. And when I come back the next day, first of all, your brain has worked already a little bit on it, but more important, you immediately know what to do, because otherwise, as in the beginning of the next day, what will I start? I don't know. If you know that there is something that is not working, you need to finish it. And yeah, my brain really activates there, and it's immediately like, okay, that's the thing I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I really like that idea that indeed I haven't done it before meetings, because I try to avoid that.
Maybe a bad.
Well, no, I think
example,
it's both good and bad, because I've seen the bad thing about it is that, especially remote, you open something and then you're in that kind of meeting, and then all of a sudden I have an idea about that tab that is open and I want to go into that. But that's, I should really pay attention again, monotasking on the meeting.
Exactly.
And in that, it would be really strange if I would now update something on an offer that I need to send out.
People do that sometimes, reading emails or whatever. It's like, I can see that.
Yeah, and that would be really strange. For example, in this interview, if I would do that, that would be not paying attention to you. But at the same time, I understand the part that if you have opened it and it's kind of ready, so that's I see advantages in that as well. And actually, I should think about it. I'm doing this recording on one computer, and I know that I have my laptop somewhere here, and that it's closed, but I could have opened something to do after this interview, and then it's ready. If I just open the laptop, then I would immediately see it. I didn't think about it, so that's a very good tip. So I hope other people can use it to their advantage. I know I will. So thank you for sharing that tip.
Thank you.
And I want to move to that next tip about remote work. And I wonder, did you do already a lot of remote work before COVID, or was that something you discovered when the whole world was shut down?
Well, I think I can't hardly remember how it was before. It's kind of tricky.
It's 3 years ago. Huh?
Exactly. No, I don't think I haven't really been doing that. I've been wanting to meet people and do things physically. I like to visualize things and run design thinking workshops or Lego workshops or whatever. So it's been a lot of physical work together with whiteboard or something. But I have used murals before, doing like visualizing customer journeys and stuff like that. So working digitally with people. Because I've had to, because sometimes I'm in Stockholm and some customers up north in Sweden or so. So I have done that, but I would say not so much. Absolutely not as much as we've done now during COVID.
And so with the whole, what you've learned over the last 3 years, what is a tip to share with the world?
I think what was so exciting was to work and get to know people across the world. And to do things together. I mean, that's a whole new level, I think, of movement that I've seen in agile, probably in other spaces too, which I think is just amazing. That you can reach out, you can find people, you can support each other, you can have the same idea, cause, and build really great stuff together.
Because before you were kind of limited to Stockholm, Sweden, one way or another.
Very much, I would say, and that's the market. We have worked and having people translating our posters to a lot of different languages, but we haven't really before that collaborated so much with people, outside of Sweden doing things. But during COVID, we started to run trainings, together with people outside and creating like online trainings. We had this 4-week or 5-week program that we started to do just when COVID hit. And we have to do something. We have to meet people. Let's get together. So we started to collaborate and create that together in Mural, designing what should we do week 1, 2, 3, 4, and, running sprints of learning sprints and building that together with people I've never met before. But I think that was just amazing.
And what made you reach out to people that you've never met? Why didn't you try to work with the people you already knew? Was there something specific that triggered that?
Well, I think basically the people, my colleagues in Dandy, some of them, most of them were busy with their customers and, had a really tough time. They didn't have time to play with me. So
they don't have time for me, so I need to find new friends that want to work with me.
Maybe a little bit. And we had like 3 or 4 people that they shut down, the customer shut down what we were doing together with them. But then we needed more people, we thought. So let's get together with some people. So I think I posted probably some question asking if anyone were interested, and people answered.
It's for me, it's also amazing because indeed I had the opportunity to go to a lot more international events.
Yeah.
Some of the events I knew. The biggest example I give is the XTC Extreme Tuesday Club in London. I've been to that one before, but of course only when I was in London, which happens not every week or every month. And during COVID, the first year, I think I went there every month, because now it's like, hey, this is possible. I can actually every month go there. And the interesting part is that at the same time, there were a lot of events in Belgium that I would used to go, and now I didn't go. It's like, yeah, I know. Now I can see my international friends. And I was kind of ignoring my Belgian friends. And I met other people, and in a lot of cases, well, I had the advantage that I had been already going to a lot of international conferences before, so I had lots of international friends. But I tried to reconnect that way, and for me, it was like, whoa, indeed, it kind of worked. It's not that it's the same. I don't think that neither of us are saying that, but it was like, indeed, we can meet again other people and find ways to do that kind of stuff.
And I think that just the feeling that we were all experiencing pretty much the same thing across the world. I think that's maybe, I don't know if that has happened before, but giving us the same context. We're in the same boat. How can we support each other? I think that feeling was really strong for me.
Well, in the same boat, and at the same time, we had much more tools to support each other and to connect. I mean, if you look back 1,000 years ago, if the other things were happening, there was nothing. But of course, I think also at the same time, it's both a blessing and a curse, in the sense that the virus spread as quick as possible because of all these kind of things. If we would not have had all the airplanes and everything, I think the travels, it would have spread a lot slower. But now, because of that, we also had the option to connect to a lot more people, or feel indeed and know about it. Because whatever happened with the Spanish flu and whatever, I think most people didn't know about it until it hit their own country. And now I still remember in the beginning, it's like, okay, something's happening in there in China, what's going on? And I still remember seeing a friend or a colleague that went skiing in a place, and he came back, and on Monday was like, yeah, should I even shake a hand? Haha, it's dangerous. And then later we discovered that he'd been to one of the places that was a lot of spreading.
In Italy.
Yeah, exactly. And he didn't catch it, neither of us, but we did. I think he came back on Monday, and on Wednesday we did a training for more than 200 people that we had all in the same room. And we were kind of cautious because I had planned a skilling ball game. So we would throw balls all over the place. So with 200 people, we decided let's not do that. So maybe that's a little bit. But other than that, we just shook hands. I don't know if we hugged, but we're 200 people in a large room. And
who would have known what was going to happen or how it was working?
Exactly. And then a few weeks later, it's like, okay, we're going to shut down because it's like it's essentially
scary thing. But I felt a lot safer having people in different places in different countries that I could talk to. What's going on? What do you see? How is it with you? What are they doing? The politicians, and what kind of regulations do you have? Can you do this or can you do that? And
in that sense, it also sometimes felt a little bit like a big experiment because everyone around the world was having different kind of politics and different kind of rules. And I can imagine, I don't know how much data that we have, but if we look back, I don't know, 10 years from now, if you can look at the statistics and data and whatever, we might be learning a lot about, okay, what kind of rules, because let's face it.
I hope so, that they will learn from it.
Yeah, but basically it was a big experiment because we had no idea how that virus was spreading in the beginning. We were thinking, okay, this is how we can stop it. And somehow it got stopped a little bit. But what parts did work, what parts didn't work? Everybody thinks their idea, or well, I'll put it different. The people who took decisions say that their idea was the best. And then the people who suffered from it think it's the worst. And then and then that other country is doing this, and that's like
and it was very different. I mean, Sweden, we had schools open. Everything pretty much was open. It's just stay at home if you're not feeling well. Don't shake hands. It's like more simple rules, please follow them, which I think made it a lot easier. But of course, still isolating a lot of people, especially the elder.
Yeah, and I do wonder. I had this discussion. I don't remember with who anymore, but I had this discussion on the show as well. With that, I think a lot of agile people, we kind of think long term. We kind of know that a lot of things are unknown. So we know that you can't fix a rule at the moment that there is a lot of uncertainty. We know that you need to experiment. We know that you need to adjust some of the rules. And I think that made it, or at least for me, that made it much easier to say, okay, they changed a rule. Last week it was this. Now this week we have learned. So we change another rule.
Let's hope that hypothesis works.
Exactly. And
I was doing a training for a customer, and that was before they had any regulations in Sweden. And we were exploring Cynefin, and then I took Italy as an example for just making a decision in the simple space, the obvious space. Saying this is how we're going to deal with this. This is going to fix it. Which maybe it makes it worse. Maybe this makes it go into chaos because they don't know what's going on really. So it was like before it actually went into chaos.
But it was, like you say, we have kind of tools. We can think about some of that stuff. And then we see a lot of people that want certainty and think, and think and fix things.
And struggle in this. And I don't think it has been a struggle, maybe not so much for me in that sense. I don't feel that I have to control things, which maybe is nice when it is like this.
Yeah, that was kind of the message I said, that for a lot of agilists, I think it's a little bit easier. That doesn't mean that we don't feel lonely or whatever regulation. We still need to connect one way or another, I felt also like, okay, I can think about it. I read somewhere in the beginning, like most pandemic take 3 years. So I was like, okay, it will take. I was actually expecting to have a vaccine by this summer of 23. And so when the vaccines finally came, it's like, we're way ahead of schedule. I'm happy. That's like, and I understand why it took them less time, because I understand, okay, how far and some of the advantages. Like, okay, I kind of trust that, and like, that's okay. But for a lot of other people, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, that's a lot harder. So thank you. That brings a lot of, well, it's a different kind of tip, but at the same time, it's a lot about remote work that we've learned over the years. So that brings a very interesting discussion. Let's bring up that next question about a book. What's a book that you have read that you want to talk about?
Yeah, and this is a Swedish book. This was the latest book that I read. You could say it's not a workbook or anything like that, but it's in Swedish, so I don't have it. Doesn't there's no English translation or anything. But "Strong When It Matters" is the title, and it's about mental strength. And it's written by Igor Ardonis, I think his name is, and Lars-Erik Unestål.
I think that's the book cover. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And you can see a lot of helicopters, military. So it's based on his research, the Igor's research around mental strength and how you can train people. And it's been training athletes, professional athletes, but also within the Air Force, I think, in the beginning, and in the military now. And the book itself they have 3 different people that give different perspectives from the military, from the police, and also from the ambulance part on how they work with different topics when it comes to mental strength and to handle difficult situations.
And so do I understand that these are 3 different models to deal with similar kind of problems? Is that how I see it?
No, it's all about the research and what you can do, but also how they have applied it within these 3 different areas.
Because these areas are different, they have applied it differently. That's more.
Yeah, and they have done it differently. They have had hired researchers within, I think it was the ambulance care, to understand how they could work with this and learn much faster how to deal with things. So they had researchers that they employed. So they have done different things in different ways, and I find it really interesting because they have really tough jobs. How do they manage to keep calm? Because that's one of the things. He has a training program how to by breathing, how to get calm. And then you can use your brain, as you know, the stress cone, bring yourself up to be able to use your brain to actually help.
It's interesting because the last week I interviewed Tasha, another person from the community that is working on well, she's kind of left the agile community. She's now doing a lot of breath work, so really talking about breathing. And we talk also about how she takes ice baths, for example, and she's afraid of cold. So she's actually training herself and her body to go into an ice cold bath, really, and breathing. And then where in the beginning she could only do it like for, I don't know, very short time, like a few seconds. And now she can do it for 10 minutes and actually get very calm because of breathing and a lot of what. So it feels similar to what you're describing or what that.
And it is kind of that breathwork trend. I've seen that. And I think it's really valuable. It's really useful. And it's amazing what it does with your body and what it does with your brain. And there were so many things in that book that was just like, oh, I have to go back to this model. I have to think about this in our context. And I found it really.
But like you say, it's not translated into English at this moment. So
not that I know. No, he has written other books as well. Maybe they are.
But because it sounds really like important also for our community, like you say. A lot of the work that we're doing with teams, and let's face it, some of the teams are under a lot of stress. If we can teach them to deal with it and to deal with and find ways to not be that much impacted, because yeah, of course, we want to avoid some of the stress, but
Yeah,
the
change
three
the
examples,
system, of course.
exactly. But the three systems that you're talking about, by definition, if you're working with healthcare, or if you work in police or in an army, that these are stressful situations one way
Yeah.
or another.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can say, okay, let's just take away fires, and yeah, well, no, there's a part of that needs to happen, but there
But
are
if you
always
get
stressful.
paralyzed, as you do, if you get super stressed, you get paralyzed. Then they can't do their job, right? So he had this thing that you should train for 10. If you have a scale 1 to 10, and the really bad things are 10, you have to train for a 10. You can't train for a 7. Then you don't know how to handle a 10.
So you train for a 10, and then hopefully most of the times you never go to a 10, but that doesn't matter. If you have a 5 or a 7, you're able to deal with that.
It's simple stuff, yeah. And it had this training program at the end. I'm actually going to start it now on vacation. That you should do this breath work every day for, I think it was 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening, I think. So you go from breathing, counting to 10, and then counting back down to 1 again. Then you do that, I don't remember how many times. I did it a couple of days just to try it out. And then he has these videos on YouTube that you can use to train yourself in the program for a couple of months. And he started to develop this to train pilots in the Air Force. Because I'm not sure if it was him or someone else, or if he is that old, but I can't remember. But they had a lot of problems. I think it was in the 60s that a lot of airplanes crashed because the pilots got stressed. And then they thought they had the wrong people. So people got fired because they thought they couldn't handle stress. And then
which was kind of true, but it's better to train them to deal with the stress than to fire them, because
And I think we see the same thing today. People get stressed. Oh, it's their fault. Fire them. We have the wrong people. No, we don't. We have to fix the system instead.
And part of the fixing the system is train the people to deal with these kind of situations.
Yeah, so they can handle a 10, but also can fix the system and see what's wrong. Which could be, really stressful situations. You might have to deal with things that you are scared of. Maybe scared of losing your job, or scared of standing up for something, or talking to higher management about things. That could look like it's my fault, but it's not really.
Yeah, but I really like that, because if you feel much less stressed, and if you feel like, okay, and I think this is part of what happens as agile coaches, that we're outsiders, so I dare much more to say something to a C-level, because if he fires me, like, okay, then I go somewhere else. It's not that I don't worry about it. I still want to bring the message and help the people, but it's not going to block me from not bringing the message. And I see indeed a lot of people saying, no, I rather not go into that. I'm not going to address that, because you never know what's going to happen. It's like, I rather be fired for bringing the right message than be fired for not bringing a message. But you need to have that calm. You need to have, to have some kind of, first of all, a safety net for myself. And maybe it's working with someone where I can say, okay, I feel like I have someone who supports me. And at the same time, it's like feeling that calm in myself. So I can imagine that breath work can help a lot with dealing with these kind of situations.
Yeah, so could be a 10 for us to deal with some of these things. The 10 is probably different for all of us, but
well, I think it's also really depending on what kind of situation, because I can imagine, for example, if you're in a classroom with, I don't know, 20 toddlers, that dealing with it, a lot of us, we would not be able to deal with it. And most teachers are like, okay, that's my life. But then you put them somewhere near a fire and they have problems, and a fireman would not be able to handle the toddlers, but can handle a fire.
That's probably different tense.
Exactly, that's what the kind of message I wanted to bring, that there's different kind of tense. And it's interesting that I can imagine that once you find a way to bring yourself calm, you can, no matter what kind of situation it is, you can deal with that that kind of thing. Because I think the different kind of tense is that what are we used to and what is stress for us, where the breath work, what you seems to talk about is like, okay, it should be independent of the stress. I can find a way how I can calm myself down and
so whatever stresses me,
exactly,
I can handle it by breathing, and it's the deep breathing in the stomach down. And I tried it while running high intensive running that I do, like interval running, and then I get really high, what do you call it?
Hyperventilating or something like that, or
high pulse, right?
Right, okay.
But when I started to do this deep breathing, I never got that in a 20 minutes running. And then I do 1 minute, and then I have a break for 20 seconds. I do 1 minute, I have a break, and then I go faster and faster and faster. By doing the breath work, I didn't get the high pulse, which is just weird. It felt really weird.
Well, you're kind of controlling your body, and you kind of you find different kind of ways, and that's unfortunate that we don't learn these kind of tricks at school. I was just talking to my parents yesterday about the way we are taught to run in school. It's like, you have to run as fast as possible. It's like, yeah, but I didn't learn to listen to my body, what I could do. There was always a teacher shouting, faster, faster. It's like, I was not a fast runner. And I remember my parents telling me at a very young age, you're better at running longer than faster, but somehow the school kept pushing everyone basically to run faster, that I'm not able to I don't know, for example, what's the speed I need to run or whatever. Okay, there are tools these days, like you say, you can have watches or whatever that can help us tell me, okay, this is too fast or whatever. But I know people who are really good at listening to their own body, and they know it for themselves. I can't, because I didn't learn all these tricks, and that's really a shame.
I was playing soccer for 10 years, 11 years or something, and then you do a lot of short running interval things. you practice that a lot, and you have to learn how to be able to play the whole game.
And did they train you on that, or is it just like you have to do it and they actually train you?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you also
learn how to listen. Yeah, you learn how to listen and how to get your energy back, and to be able to run the fastest you can to actually get that ball, or to stop, or whatever. Because
but in bursts, it's not like you're running for 90 minutes. No,
you never do that, right? It's short. It's the high interval thing, which I like.
It's interesting, because that's another thing in our industry. A lot of people think, you need to be active all the time. No, you need to be able to run and be active at the moment that it cares. What brings me the most value? And there's no person in team sports that would be running all the time. That would be insane. No. It's of course, if you do, I don't know, if you do athletics, then you run for, I don't know, maybe a marathon, then you run for a very long time. But even there, you don't run the fastest that you can. You run at a pace that that is the longest. That's also listening to your body. It's a different kind of training.
But I think schools, especially now, should teach kids a lot of different stuff than what they do, especially in Sweden. I think it's not getting better; it's getting worse for some reason.
I don't remember anymore. I know there are some Scandinavian countries where that my father used to say. I don't know if it's Sweden or Denmark or anywhere, but that was like, no, they're really good. Their school system is really good, but I don't know. But what you're saying is that it's getting worse these days.
I think most of our social systems in Sweden are broken at this time. Yeah, so I don't know. The politicians are getting into all the details or what is going on. We have
they want
teachers, but they don't get to do the job, so it's the same as everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing also with a lot of teachers, that they get so many things, so many administration, bureaucracy, and so many people that think how they can fix the system, but actually not trusting the people.
Yeah.
Well, a lot similar as what we sometimes see in the
Resource
agile world.
optimization, not optimizing for helping the kids to become what they can become. And
yeah, the teachers should be busy the most of the time, or the children should be busy, but let's not look at the outcome. And like you say,
so that's
like we just said about sports, soccer, we shouldn't run all the time. No, we should run at the moment that there is a ball to catch and there is something to do.
We have different roles to play,
And it's I think it's the same thing. So some children need to get much more attention for maths and other for languages, and let's not push at much for other kind of things.
The motivation that they have, and like different things and are good at different things and want to do different things. They're not all the same, but the school system, they put everyone in the same template, and if you don't perform, then you're a bad student, a bad kid, which is horrible. I hate grades. I hate all those things.
I think a lot of people, the more we're talking about system thinking and all these kind of things, and again about design thinking, there's a lot of it that we can see at that kind of level. That it's interesting. At the same time, we're not involved in everything. We can't fix everything.
No,
that sometimes is sad.
Work with the schools, that would be amazing. Work with healthcare, that would be amazing. There's a lot of research showing that grades doesn't help kids to perform better. They don't become smarter. They don't do better. They don't feel smarter. So why do that? It's just there's a lot of research saying that, but still they do. In Finland, they don't give, as far as I know at least, they don't give homework. But in Sweden, still they do. So kids have to work at night as well as during the day. Who does that? Not the grown-ups. Why should they?
Well, if we work at night, it's to help our children with the homework that they're not under, and then we burn out.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, I can get a lot of that kind of thing. Okay, I want to move to that next question that for me is one of the most interesting ones, is that what question did I not ask you and that you think I should also ask you? Is there anything particular that I should ask you or that you can ask yourself?
That I can ask myself. Why do I always take the long path? I kind of enjoy working with things that I think can be fixed, and it doesn't look easy. Then I think that looks like fun.
But at the same time, I'm hearing like, okay, you sometimes question yourself, it's okay, why didn't I just take an easy job or something else? Is that also
but I would be so bored. I could probably make tons of money being a hired, manager, doing whatever, and I would just hate myself. I would hate the job. I don't know. Maybe I would do a lot of good doing the work that I do now. I don't know, but it's just, I can't even picture myself doing that.
Also because you would be bored. That's what I'm hearing.
I think so. But then it's just, I never take the easy path, the short path.
Yeah, but at the same time, the short path it might be working in the short term, but maybe not in the long run. And what I'm hearing in a lot of the conversation that we just had today is that you're going for the well, maybe not the full fix, but at least for the sustainable fix, something that when you change it, that the system keeps, at least that some of the ideas that you bring will stay, and that still stay there. So that's
at least here with people. I enjoy that.
And do you and that's the interesting part when you say that stays with people. Do you still have lots of contacts with people that you helped like 5 to 10 years ago? Is there a way that people reach out to you and say, "Hey, Mia, thank you for whatever"?
Yeah. A lot of times, and still maybe having contact, being friends, meeting up for lunch, or maybe they join in some meetups we do, or so a lot of that, which I enjoy.
And that's the question I wanted to ask. I assume you enjoy that you like that.
Yeah. maybe they come back, in a new position or a new job,
and bring new problems that you can solve again.
Or I don't, but maybe we do, or maybe they join us in Dandy, which has happened as well. That's amazing.
Okay, well, it sounds like indeed very nice if people bring back or come back with these kind of stories of how you help them. I want to go to that last question. It's been a very fun conversation so far. So who's the person that you think I should ask next to talk to?
And my idea was a friend of mine, Frida Mangen, in the Agile community.
I think that's her. Is that correct?
That is her, yes.
I didn't check up front, so it's always a risk if I take a picture and then...
and she's she's a colleague of mine, and she's in the Agile HR space. And she's a bright woman, and she's doing a lot of good for the good reasons. So I think that's would be interesting.
It's I wanted to ask, that's the sub question, of course, why should I invite her? And that's what you say. She's doing some work in the Agile HR, which is again, we talk already about contracting and other kind of things. That sounds like amazing new territory where amazing new things are happening. Well, maybe for your point of view, it's no longer new, but I think if we look at from let's put it like that, the rest of the Agile community, not everybody has heard about these kind of things, and this is where we're doing some of that discovery, because that's, for me, is one of the reasons why I'm doing this series. I want to, well, it's not that I don't want to hear the big Agile names, because of course everybody wants to talk to and learn from them, but at the same time I want also to hear about new names, because the new names are the people who do the new things from the future and coming up with ideas. And like I said, maybe for you, Agile HR and contracting, you've been doing it now for a while, but I think the rest of the world, we can still learn a lot about the work that you've been doing on these kind of things. So thank you for supporting her and bringing her up. It's been, like I said, a really wonderful conversation to have. And I think you said in the beginning you were very tired, but it looks like there still was a lot of energy. So there was still, and a lot of laughter. It was a very nice and fun conversation. If people want to reach out to you, what could be a good way to reach you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn.
And I think, if I'm correct, that's the the link.
Yeah. Oh, you're amazing.
Well, I have some preparation to do. That's
a good way to find me. So and write a message. So.
And to have in contact. And I think just preparing this. Who's now tired? It looks like I've taken over some of that. But when I looked on the preparation, and I know when we connected originally, there were some interesting articles that you shared over the last couple of weeks. So that was, I think it will be fun for people to reach out to you and follow you and see what you're sharing. It's been a wonderful time. I really want to thank you for your energy, for to spread all these messages. You said it earlier, thanks to COVID, we could reach out and connect to people all around the world. That's a little bit what I try to do with this show as well, to find people, to give the idea, okay, we're not sitting in a bar, we're not having the physical thing together, but I hope it feels a little bit like a connection. And maybe, whenever that I will be visiting Stockholm, or you're visiting Ghent or Belgium, that we can reach out at some point, or somewhere around the world at a conference.
Really nice. Yeah, very nice. You're very welcome to come and visit. And we have an amazing office. So if it's daytime, you can come there. Otherwise, we can have a drink there too.
Well, that sounds like a really nice invitation, and I'm trying to say something similar to people. I should watch out because I invite, of course, now a lot of people on this show. But I'm saying if people are in Belgium, if they give a training or whatever, that they can definitely visit, and we if they're
I would
a few
love to
days,
say hi.
we can say. But
Thank you.
okay, well, thank you very much for your time. Have a nice day or
Have a
evening.
nice day.
Bye-bye. And good holiday. Let's not forget about that.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.